Okay, so welcome back everybody, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Yves Berthaud from the COQ team in France, who's going to tell us a little bit more about the organizational setup and about new developments. And if you have feedback and comments, I'm sure he'll be happy to take them too. Before we start, I think we should all give Yves and his team a round of applause, because if I understand everybody correctly, you pretty much like what you do. The entire team for developing COQ.
You will have time for that. Okay. So I think this event is a great thing. So I spent a lot of time before deciding that one of us should come, and when there was no other volunteer, I came. But I have a hard time considering myself as a COQ developer. You see, it's said differently on the slides, but it's because I didn't write the slides. So I actually translated slides that were made in French by Maxime Denès for a COQ meetup that happened in Paris. So if you want to have other COQ meetups in other places in the world, please feel free to do that. I think it's a big advantage for us to really act as a community and make sure that communication happens. So I decided to come here also to talk to you about the way we are organized as a developer team and the way we view the future. And among the things I'm going to say, there will be a little about what's in the works. But I can't really give a lot of details because I don't know much. I wanted to use a radio thing, but I forgot to put it on. So the first natural number is a 0, apparently. You probably already know what COQ is. This is, as I explained to you, these slides were made for a meetup, so we were expecting that somebody might want to know about this, and so we explained a very simple view of what the language represents, what the system represents. We give examples of what we consider as some of the landmark recent results. So some of them are not so recent, but as you will see, the DeepSpec project endeavors are well placed in this list. We like to mention the VST, the QuickCheck, Fiat Camille, and Fiat Crypto efforts. As you can see, there are some of these that also happen in France. I said CompCert. There is JSCert, which is actually a description of formal description of JavaScript, which is an effort between several countries in Europe, actually. And we also like to mention the Software Foundation book as a nice contribution for teaching. So, for those of you who think that COQ is a part of the landscape, it was not always part of the landscape. It actually started in 1984. Myself, I was not doing computer science at the time. It's still, for me, it's still personal information, because actually the first result for the calculus of construction was announced at a workshop that happened in Sophia Antipolis at the time. At the time, Sophia Antipolis was very much a countryside location. The work started with Thierry Coquan and Gérard Huet. I think Gérard Huet has always been a very active developer in the ML language. At INRIA, he is credited for the OCaml effort as much as for the COQ effort. And COQ has been developed collectively by teams that were led by Gérard Huet and then Christine Paulin. And then in a team that is hosted by Pierre-Louis Curien at University of Paris. But that team does Coq, but it does also other research on other aspects of type theory. So today, the code is about 600 lines, 1,000 lines of code, and it's mostly written in OCaml. So we mostly recruit our recruiters among OCaml developers, OCaml programmers, and currently there are basically 10 people collaborating in the development of Coq. This is in contrast with the developments of many other proof assistants. We are really trying to make it a collective effort. And I think it's quite important for the future that we really make sure that the system is going to have a life that relies on a collaborative effort. So for us, as I said, these slides were for a meetup, so it was interesting to give information of various kinds. It was interesting at that moment to also say that Coq received a major award from ACM in 2013. Actually, the award was given in June 2014 for the Software System Award, and the ACM SIGPlan Programming Language Software Award was given at Popple in San Diego, which was the same year, I think, in 2014. If you want to know the team, here are their pictures, at least the pictures we could gather from their home pages. So Hugo Herbelin has been part of this effort since the middle of the 90s, I think. And he was for a long time considered the main architect or the main coordinator of the development. Now, if you look for the main, the person that's considered the main coordinator of the development, it's Mathieu Sozo. So Gaëtan Gilbert, who appears in the middle of the top row, is a PhD student. Theo Zimmermann is also a PhD student. And most of the others are researchers at INRIA, except for Emilio Gallego, which a lot of you already know because he spent some time at UPenn a few years ago, who is now at École des Mines Paris Tech, which is one of the teaching institutions in Paris. Pierre-Marie Pedro, who is written here on the bottom row on the left-hand side of Mathieu, was a postdoc, or is still considered a postdoc at MPI. So he was in the team of Derek Dreyer, but he's going to be hired by INRIA next fall. So that makes that the team is still mostly hosted by INRIA researchers. But as I already said, we wanted to be a collective effort, and we have made a lot of effort over the last 4 years to make sure that we give ourselves all the structure that make it possible for people coming from outside will be wanting to contribute and will feel welcome for their contributions. I think it's also interesting to say that for the last 3 cycles, the release manager was Maxime Denès, who appears at the bottom row on the extreme right of the screen. Well, extreme right if I'm looking at you, extreme left for you. We also try to make this evolve, so I think the next release manager for 8.9 will be Guillaume Melchion, who appears on my side on the screen. Okay, so if you have any question about these people, I can pause, but it's very hard to ask personal questions about people. So let's move on. So what can we say about the size of the Coq community? It's very hard to know which are the right indicators. A few years ago, I tried to count the publications, which were the publications who cited Coq, but I also made one day the exercise of looking at all the publications in the POPL conference, and there were papers that were explicitly saying they were using Coq, but not citing it. And I don't want to complain about that. It's just, we have to be aware of this. People just consider that Coq is part of the landscape, and for that reason, they just say, we did this experiment, we used Coq, and that's it. It's just natural. Well, as I said, there is some flesh behind this. So these people need recognition. They need recognition for their work. So I'm not saying it's your job to make sure you cite the system if you use it. Somehow it's my job to make sure that the people who are going to give the recognition are aware that their work is more important than the number of citations that they can collect. So if we want to look at another indicator, I don't know how to do that. It's Enrico Tassi who helped me do that. But I think from Debian repositories, the popularity contest web page, you can collect information saying that between Debian and Ubuntu and OPAM, there are more than 10,000 people who downloaded Coq for usage. So we don't know if that's really representative of the number of users. But 10,000 is a big number for a research piece of software. Okay, so now if we look at what are the people who are now considering that they can provide objects that will be added for usage for other people, what are the packages that are made available for other people, we can look at the OPAM repository. There are 200 packages I think it's 200 packages in the released section of the OPAM repository. I think it's quite representative. But if you look at these packages, there are some of them that I think have very much a historical value and are probably not used very much now. So this is something, I think this is a direction in which collectively as a community we are going to progress. So I think there are 1,500 people that are registered in the Coq Club mailing list. I don't know if you consider this is a nice forum for asking questions and receiving answers. Another thing that was already pinpointed or indicated by Benjamin is that you can ask questions on Stack Overflow. And there are very competent people who answer on this site. Anton Trunov, who is currently working with Alex Nanevsky at EMDR, answers at every question every day. Arthur Azevedo de Amorim, that you probably know, most of you, because he was in one of the deep spec team, is also answering to all these questions. So it's a very good place to ask because these people are really competent. And I try to follow it, so I go there every day too. If I find a question that I think is in my ballpark, I answer, but most of the time I don't have to answer. Among the little games I play, aside from my work, I look at what are the countries in the world where Coq is being used. Well, now I think the map is pretty covered. Africa is still a problem, but Africa is a problem for everybody. You know, if you look at Google Maps of questions, also Africa is a place where there are little questions. So just for information, I'm invited to give a talk at a conference which happens in South Africa in October. So maybe that will change something, but only a little. Okay, and now Michael can witness that there are people in major companies thinking about using Coq. It's true that we cannot really say right now that there is major usage, but I think we are really at the point of change. There was a talk at Flock last week where Byron Cook explained about the work that they were doing at Amazon with Galois, and Google has already had a collaboration on using code coming from Adam's team, if I understand well. So this is all the signs that this is moving, and it's very exciting for us. So it's exciting and it makes it frightening. You know, I told you there is these 10 people, and these 10 people are researchers. So their activity is on thinking about deep new ideas, and making sure a piece of software with so many users is mature enough for everybody to be comfortable. This is not exactly the right game. So for this reason, we've started the thinking about how to change the model of development in such a way that the maturity that is needed, that will probably is requiring more engineering than research, can be obtained. And also, if we want to have this pickup in industry, I think maybe Michael will confirm or contradict what I'm saying, but I have the impression that if we really want Coq to be adopted more, we have to show maturity. And to show maturity, we need to put some manpower in it. So this is what we try to do, is to build a structure that has as its main objective making sure that Coq is a mature piece of software. So Maxime Denès, who appeared in the bottom row at the far end of the screen with respect to me, has been hired with the objective of setting up this consortium, and he's an employee of this consortium since last October. And we are hiring a new engineer this year with Vincent Laporte, whom you probably already know because he was one of the main developers with Jacques-Henri Jourdan of the Verasco static analyzer associated to the COMCERT project. So all this is supported by INRIA. I think they are very excited by the idea that we make Coq become really an international effort. And so far we've received financial support mostly from the intensive users from academia. So thank you to the deep spec PIs, because you really took it seriously to understand how to help this new adventure succeed. So what can we think about what should be the objectives of this consortium? Then we want to attract and host very good developers. So I think Maxime qualified as such. I'm a bit ill-placed to judge because he was my PhD student. So. But I really asked to the whole development team before proposing that he should be hired in this position. Vincent has also shown very much his abilities, both in terms of development and in terms of using the Coq system. And this is what I'm aiming for. I don't want to increase the manpower for this consortium too fast. I want to really hire top people, and then with also because we are trying to be ready for the time when industrial usage is going to pick up, but we don't have that many signs of industrial usage yet. So we have to be make sure to be able to answer, but we should not go faster than the market in some sense. I'm trying to use a startup language, although the model we have is that this consortium is going to be hosted by a non-for-profit organization. So in this respect, I can talk about a market, but it's the market for the Coq community, but